All right, buttons aren't working. I don't know what's going on. Got a slight delay here. And this is the problem with relying on things like handoff, is that things stop working and your mouse is over there and doesn't work. Anyway, so I'm not sure how long I'll stick around for. It really depends on who's around, but I'm not feeling it. But that, part of the reason why you should always do things when you don't feel like it. Isn't that part of the thing? I'm not really feeling it at the moment, mostly because, it's difficult talking to nobody most of the time. But, a lot of it is also just that I've got a lot of work to do and I've got a lot on. And it's sort of, it's hard to it's just, it feels like an indulgence and pointless a lot of the time. And it's, whatever. Hang on, just let me turn off there's a slight lag. I think it's because I plugged in my phone. It's a fucking delay. If this isn't working, I'm just going to quit. I can't be asked. Hang on, let me turn off the preview. Let me just unplug this. If the camera disappears, you'll know why. No, it didn't. Okay. Might be a bit quicker now. Okay. So I plugged in the phone to the computer and I think it's going through the Wi-Fi now rather than being plugged in. I think it's trying to use USB or something. I don't know. Fuck it. Whatever. Hello, Isaac. Okay. Um, yeah, it is. It can be a little bit demotivating at times because obviously, because I'm on. Obviously, most of the people who would show up to a live stream are in bed when I start streaming. If I, and like just time zones, I'm in a weird time zone. And, it is a little bit, like I said, a little demotivating at times because, like I can't promote myself because of fucking algo fucking and all the various other things. It's not really much that you can do about it. But also I do have a lot of actual work to do, unlike people who sort of sit around for 12 hours a day streaming. It's kind of a little bit, like it's hard to sort of fit it in. So, at the end of the day, a lot of the things that I'd like to do don't happen, and that's just, it's one of those things where, it feels like a little bit like it's for the young. It feels like it's for the people who are trained in, television and media trained. And it also feels like, like I've talked about this before, the motivation is to be as simplistic as possible, to, make everything into a sort of 7-minute clip of like oversimplified stuff. And really it's quite complex stuff that we're talking about. Like we're talking about, things that are likely to be, in the High Court, being heard, take time, have a lot of moving parts, and often there are no real solutions. Like that's the nature of, complex. Anything that's complex, it's that it's often very difficult to solve and there aren't easy answers. And the difference between something complicated and complex is that complicated can be solved with enough maths, and complex is something that is largely managed or largely, negotiated, or, it shifts and moves with time. Like that's what complexity is by definition, right? And I think that a lot of people don't really understand that there's no one answer to a lot of these complex problems, because that's what a complex problem is, which is that, by definition, they don't have easy answers. They have lots of different answers and lots of, it's kind of whack-a-mole where, when you try to solve one problem, you create new problems. That's what complexity is. So anyone who just sort of disappears and goes, well, it's complex, but also here's my answers for things, don't understand what complexity is. See the problem, see the dilemma we've got. And unfortunately, people do want sort of easy answers. And unfortunately, a lot of the things that do, like, especially when we're talking about things like, like today, I'm talking a little bit about sort of because, believe it or not, the Twitter files is still going on. Like Matt Taibbi and Michael Schellenberger and a bunch of other journalists are still doing some of that digging and work around some of that very chilling relationship, I think, between the US government, and I know that it's probably all governments, right? But the US government in particular, and the very cozy relationship that they had with social media platforms. But even then, there's this sort of, I think when you've worked in tech, you understand that there's this underlying threat. And I think that our government has been pretty honest about that, which was that the threat of regulation is as good as regulation in many respects, which is that, with these tech companies, a lot of them, they weren't created by design. They weren't designed to be this way, right? When of a certain generation and a certain cohort of sort of tech people, that a lot of this stuff was... these monopolies came out of customer demand for these types of disruptions, right? It came out, it was built off of those, I was talking to my son about this yesterday, actually. It's a good idea around product and around the history of like Steam, because he's playing Half-Life, right? Which is funny. He's 18, he just turned 18 and he's playing Half-Life. And he was telling me about how, Steam evolved out of Valve, right? Which was that they created Half-Life and Half-Life 2, and they had an engine with their game, right? And that engine then they open sourced that engine, and then other people built on top of that platform, like Team Fortress 2 and those other kinds of games, right? So Valve, who are the developers who made Half-Life, they decided to build a portal where you could find most of their other games that were built on their framework, right? And then people started to flock to the Steam marketplace because they wanted to buy and play the game. So then they opened it up to more people, and then, they became sort of, over time, became that monopoly, right? That is somewhat inevitable. And the same thing happened with Twitter, which was that the product of Twitter was user-led, user-generated. It's only as good as the people who use it, right? Customer demand and this is where, customer-centric design and sort of co-design and those sorts of things really kick in. But you've got most of the platforms. That's why I find it funny with these tech bros who are like, I'm going to build the next whatever, right? I'm going to build this. And one thing that's sort of, we know for certain, is that you can't, if you've ever built tech product, you can't determine what that product's going to look like sort of 5-10 years from now. You've got to stay fairly principled and on mission to do that. But also, I think one of the big, misguided things with tech is, Facebook, Twitter, Steam, Amazon, Google, a lot of those things, yes, they did have a lot of money and they got funding and the VCs ran things and all that sort of stuff. And a lot of that was opportunism, right? But the products themselves evolved out of demand and out of value and out of having created something new that people wanted. And I think people forget that when you see these sort of massive multi-billion-dollar, trillion-dollar companies. I think that people really don't attribute enough accident or enough sort of happy accident or enough fairy dust to a lot of these sorts of things. And that's why, when you're looking at regulating and there's people who a decade ago said that you should, well, myself included, who said the industry needed regulating, you needed to sort this stuff out, I've been talking about web agencies and digital agencies needing to to be regulated and more transparent and sign up to sort of certain ethical guidelines since I even started in the business, right? Because I am quite happy to meet those standards and abide by those standards, and obviously the people who don't will fight those standards, right? They will fight that tooth and nail because they're dodgy as fuck, like SEO agencies and, various other people who do those dark practices and take money under the table for various things will fight for accountability and regulation, right? But the thing that I find, I know I've sort of meandered off, wandered off, but I think a lot of people forget that a lot of, these things are... Institutions are not something that are just deliberately designed from the top down. It's not really something that is possible, trying to manage that many people. When any kind of complex system, a lot of it, like I said, especially with businesses and products and tech products and those sorts of things, are happenstance. Government, democracy, all of these sorts of concepts, they're not designed as such, but they're kind of some things that we figure out along the way. And, they require sort of signing on to an idea or signing on to a vision, as much as anything else. And I think that that's something worth thinking about because, this is, we're heading into something quite authoritarian, on its face. And this idea that you can somehow micromanage every aspect of society or every aspect of, disinformation or misinformation or, you are the arbiter of truth or all these things. None of that, it might be digital, right? These things might be sort of, online or in the form of a tech product, but the lessons that we've got are not new. And we've come to a conclusion that democracy, as shit as it is the best, is the best system that you can have, or, that freedom of speech or erring on the side of freedom of expression is much better than the alternatives, right? It's more about balancing alternatives. And so when we're talking about things like what's come to light with this most recent Twitter files release, right, which was the CCDH, which I've talked about before, the Centre for Countering Digital Hate, and how they cherry picked and that's being actually very polite. They overtly lied and misrepresented and deliberately like cherry-picked data. And if you look at their sort of research, right, they've 60% of their hate speech is not only not representative of the vast number of tweets that are actually sent on any given day. Like there's billions of tweets, right? And there's their sample size was a couple of thousand out of billions, and at no point was that disclosed. Of those tweets that they, considered to be hateful or on the rise since Elon Musk took over X or took over Twitter, 60% of them were cunt, okay? And a few things that they have just asserted, no context, okay? I've talked about, obviously I've talked about this before, but the context has mattered as well, right? Stripping it of context and overtly using it to completely just manipulate and lie, right? Excuse me, I just inhaled my drink. But so it's like I think it's really GZ Doctor Forever, I'm guessing his username. So when you look at the stock market, it functions on set times from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. US, but crypto is 24/7. Do you see AI co-working with humans in manufacturing for a 24-hour business? Humans 8 hours. I don't understand. Okay. Well, they do that anyway. That's how it runs. That stuff mostly runs algorithmically anyway. When you say the stock market, you mean the New York Stock Exchange? Because there's stock markets around the world. So Europe trades at a different time. The Australian stock market trades. Hong Kong trades. I don't understand what you're saying. It doesn't make... Yeah, the New York... Yeah, so New York Stock Exchange isn't the centre of the universe either. So... But the world goes on while America's asleep. But most of the stock market is algorithmically driven anyway. Anyway, so it's a distraction. So, but I'm talking about sort of complex systems. And so I think that with tech, we're talking about sort of the CCDH and let me just get my brain back because it's obviously, switching context can be a tricky thing. What were we saying? CCDH. So the new Twitter files, right? That Matt Taibbi shared that overnight, right? And it's validated a lot of what I've already been talking about, which was this idea that that there's these handful of sort of publications, right? Now, again, just because they're focusing on this particular nonprofit, okay? And this particular set of media and this particular politician, what we need to do is zoom out from that and see a template for how you can manipulate anything, okay? So I'm only concerned with a template that is easily replicated over and over again, where you can set up a not-for-profit, okay? You can have a private company, so in the form of a digital agency. So, private companies don't have to report the details of their books, right? So they don't have to disclose where their money comes from because it is a private business relationship, right? So these charities or whatever may hire an agency or hire a PR firm or, hire various things for services, right? And they'll put them on a retainer. Now, that might be in the form of sort of marketing costs or comms costs or PR or, sort of more of an operational expense, right? So there's not really any scrutiny. Now, of course, obviously, if they're going to talk about, obviously there is some degree of accountability, but not... It's opaque, right? It's obvious that those private businesses are a black box of where money is going and where it's being spent, right? So, and those digital agencies have accounts, right, with Facebook, Google, AdSense, that's Google, LinkedIn, all those various places, and they can run ads, okay? But what they can do is, because that's at the account level, they can just load money into that one business account. So what you can feasibly do, I've talked about this before, is pull that money from various not-for-profits who are on your books, okay? They're all paying you a retainer for marketing costs, 10, 20 grand a year, sometimes a lot more than that. And what you would do is then have a shared client, okay, or other things. So it's the way that these things, it's very easy to launder sort of disinformation money in campaigns. So I'm focused more on the zooming out and how you can regulate an industry where these things exist without necessarily putting too much scrutiny. These are problems that are tricky to solve, right? So, as a digital agency, why would you, if you're a private company, it raises some questions. Should private companies, have more scrutiny on their books, right? To what extent should the government scrutinise that? Okay, now, obviously, you've got your tax returns and you've got various other things. If you're a public company, that's a lot more scrutiny. But if you're a private company, you don't have to necessarily disclose where all of your money's going. Okay, you get what I'm trying to say here. So it's like, well, okay, so when you're talking about the Twitter files, I think you've got to understand where my focus is, which is that it's not so much about the individual political actors, okay, because obviously one thing that we've seen through the culture wars is that people will jump on the thing that confirms their point of view, but then ignore the fact that they're doing it, right? This is the problem with this whole sort of template that I talk about, which is that everyone is using it. It's just a strategy. It's basic. It's just a very easy and sophisticated digital strategy if you have no ethics and you don't actually care about people and you're not user-centered and not human-centered and don't care about anything other than profit and numbers, right? This is why it comes from it permeates from marketing to crypto scams to everything, okay, which is that it's a set of practices, which is that you can set up an ad account, you can pull resources with that ad account, you can have even with Facebook's ad library, right, where they put that stuff in place. They put this ad library in place so that you can look and see who's buying ads and who's buying political ads. But guess what then they go and do? What they go and do is then they will just go and say, well, it's not a political ad, and what we'll do is we'll sell merch. Merch falls in within that loophole. So the example that I use is the sort of Cats Against Trump t-shirts, right? That's an online store. They set up a Shopify store with sort of dropship printing or some, they might have some merch, Cats Against Trump, but it's not actually political advertising. It's just something where they're selling shirts. But, you might buy it because you think it's funny or whatever, but they're still gathering your data, still gathering your email address, and they will still be marketing to you. And, so there's not really any transparency around that. And so they don't have to actually put anything in the Facebook ads. I think the Cats Against Trump people do and did, because Facebook became a lot stricter with that. So that example is sort of somewhat expired. But just think creatively about how just giving your email address to anybody means that they can then retarget you or remarket you at any point. Okay. And you've got this thing with data where people they know your interests, you're filling out these quizzes, which are giving a lot of behavioral data. Just, you'd be amazed how much you can extrapolate from someone's which comedian do you like best, fucking dumbass quizzes, or which, what's your future, but answer these handful of questions. That's, do enough of those and you've got full-on psychometric testing. That's what Cambridge Analytica did, okay? And that's what a lot of these agencies now do. Just because Cambridge Analytica were the fall guys doesn't mean that template has not been sort of replicated over and over and over again, which is to get people to do a quiz, get them to fill out all these questions, volunteer all this behavioural data, and then they will just remarket it to you. But they'll sell that list they'll sell that list to other people. They'll, these centralized databases of contact info. And it's like, well, okay, how do you even begin to fight against that? Because even if you do regulate against, political advertising, people who want to get to you politically might be 2 or 3 clicks or 2 or 3 steps away from actually having to disclose that they're political advertisers, right? So, you've got these agencies in the way that they're set up, which is that, you could have, I've gone through this in detail before, but you can have, 3 not-for-profits on the books, 2 corporations, 1 major corporation, a few dark donors, a few angel investors that are investing in your business. You could have an app that you're building where it's got another investor that's funneling money through that, but that's all in the pool. And then you can actually be running ads. You could just be selling t-shirts or handbags or anything, but They're building the data. It doesn't matter which ad or which content the data comes from, so long as it's behavioral and so long as they're fucking evil and so long as they've got no scruples, it's easy to do. Like, if I had no ethics, I'd be super rich. And there's a lot of people getting very rich off of this. There's an agency called Another Acronym. I've talked about that on X, right? Look at 60, they get a lot of money. Okay, they're an agency, digital agency that run like a PAC, political action committee in the United States. They build these like relationships with apps and tech companies and various other things, but they're also providing services for the DNC. They're providing all this stuff. They're openly bragging about how they're doing these sort of quiz campaigns and nudging the needle for democracy. And they literally say we're a non-partisan organization when they're clearly partisan. And like, it's just incredible, like what goes on in America and how much bullshit there is. And these tactics, this set of tactics, right? It's hang on, let me just open this up. This set of tactics is the thing that you need to look at, because it's not just the Democratic Party that's doing it. It is a playbook. It is a set of like tactics that the whole industry uses, okay, which is about lead magnets, email address, subscribe, behavioral data, gathering data, CRMs, like Salesforce own all of this stuff. It doesn't matter what they're selling, who they're talking to, who they're selling it to, or what they're selling. You are a target for political advertising. Okay, now I didn't speak clearly about that. Let me see, hang on, let me just check some stuff. Okay, so there's nothing going on here. All right. Sorry, just let me check on my computer. Okay. But I think that's the thing that people really are missing, is that this is why you can tell that the opposition to this is very strange. Because you've seen these moving parts, and you do notice like even with the weaponization committee, right, that are running with the Jim Jordan thing, I think, is it Michael Schellenberger's been running this stuff about the weaponization of a government committee, right? And I started to read the report, and they're basically like the far left. And that's straight away, like, that's going to just make anyone go, oh, okay, partisan shit, bullshit. And then they're going to ignore the substance of this, okay, which is that this is an attack vector for all of social media that no one is addressing because everyone benefits from. It's a loophole and it's a playbook, okay? There's a lot of money in it. It's a big industry, and unfortunately there's no transparency around it, okay? And that's why so something like the CCDH, like, they're just one of thousands, okay, of not-for-profits that are doing the same thing and trying their luck, okay? So they're doing research, okay? They're funding, you set up a not-for-profit that does research, okay? You scrape the Twitter API, you publish your research, which is basically a brochure, okay? You fundraise, you say you manufacture this threat, and then you start to fundraise off the back of that threat because you're a not-for-profit. And I've talked about DAFs before. You're a donor-assisted fund. You just end up becoming a tax write-off for various dark money people, right? And easy money if you've got no ethics. It's easy. Anyone could set this shit up, right? And then you just sit there and you just run. You hire a private company that you pay on a retainer to do your dirty work, like your PR work and your troll farms and all of your digital agency work, okay? And then you pay for marketing costs or creative services or those sorts of things, and then you pay them a retainer to do all of your dirty work. That's, and then they're off selling, socks and T-shirts and fucking stickers and shit that are unrelated, but they're getting the data and sharing that data with you so that, it's all just like, okay, so how do we fix this problem? Which is that you make it a criminal offence to do this shit, because it's the only answer. Even in Australia. So we've got this new It's not new. She's been, she's introduced it a few times, and it's a known gap. Right. But off the back of the voice referendum here, there was a lot of misinformation and disinformation. Now, this is the good part of this is the part that's the problem with this stuff is that it always leverages something. Disinformation leverages something that is true and has a grain of salt to it. And this is the problem with the spin in general, which is when you are looking that's right. So I was talking about the Weaponization Committee, where you see Jim Jordan go the far left. No, people stop listening and they don't pay attention. Okay, Matt Taibbi loses credibility. Schellenberger looks like a far right kook, because he goes far left are doing this. No, because the GOP, Daily Wire, that network, the Fox News network, fucking, CNN, NBC, MSNBC, the Majority Report, the Young Turks, every fucking major, anything online, offline is implementing these tactics. Okay? It's just marketing tactics, and they're marketing tactics when you've got no fucking scruples. That's it. It's not, there's nothing ideological about it. It's just, it's what, here's an ethical defense for it. If you have a client, okay, much like a lawyer, right? You've got a client. The ethical thing to do is to serve that client as to the best of your ability. And an online marketer or a digital campaigner or PR person is no different. Their job, okay, is to serve their client. And what do you do how would you serve that client? Well, you do what converts. Do what works. Okay, so that's the ethically neutral argument for it. I mean, I would argue that you shouldn't take that work on, right? But there's people that will just rationalize it and go, well, they're clients. I've got to serve my client and do what I do for my clients, right? There's people who just see the world that way, which is the ethical thing to do is to do the job that I've paid for. And a lot of them, it's mostly because they're dumb and they're just marketers and they don't realize that there's a world outside marketing, right? But, there's a lot of people that's their worldview, which is that you just, that it's neutral, that these tactics are neutral, that you do whatever it takes to get ahead and you do whatever it takes to serve your client. Perfectly, I would disagree with that view, but it's a view, right? Hang on a second, I'm just looking something up. Where are we? Why did I get this out? Oh, because of the chat. Okay, so I can't see the chats, and they might come up on the preview, but they may not. Sorry, I got itchy nose too. But I think this is the problem that we've got, which is that nobody is zooming out on the overall tactics. There's no political will to do so, because the problem is that everyone benefits from it. Nobody's going to say hit pause on this thing. What they're going to do is accuse the other side of doing it and pretend that they don't. And this is the problem that we've got in terms of politics, right? Which, especially in the US, right, where this is way out of control. Okay, it's pretty out of control here, but it's way out. Like, America doesn't seem like it's going to do anything about this anytime soon, and really all they're going to do is get more and more authoritarian as time goes on, right? This is just, I think this seems to be the path. But you've got, even these things like the weaponization of government committee, where they're using it as a political tool to sort of accuse the Democratic Party of this fuckery, knowing full well that they do the same fuckery. Okay, they use these, like these proxy wars through influencers and various other people. There's, it's just, anyway. But we're seeing that play out now with the war, right? Which is that you'll just see parallel narratives, both truths, both have a grain of truth to them, depending on how you spin it, right? And it's not so much, it's not so much that one is false and one is, true. It's just that it's which parts of the truth you emphasize. Okay. And that's the same thing with a lot of these funnels and stuff, which is, it's a matter of emphasis. Many things can be true, especially when talking about complex issues. When you're talking about complexity, many things are true at once. Right. So that reminds me of the Milton Friedman's ethical stance of being the sole responsibility of a business is to increase its profits. Exactly. And that's the argument. And that's a valid argument, right? I don't agree with it. I don't think that necessarily leads to a good society, because that's what But, there is an argument for it. It's not just because you disagree with something doesn't mean you don't understand. This is one thing I love about like the fucking, these like the right-wing bros, the debate bros, where they're like, oh no, you just haven't given us a chance. You just don't understand. And I was like, no, I understand. I've got 10 years of university understanding a lot of this stuff, plus my own reading and life experience and world experience. I think that you're wrong. I think that the way that society looks right now, that's enough evidence to show that capitalism just does not work the way that you want it to work. This is just, this is how capitalism orients. It goes in that direction. This is the pursuit of profit at all costs. Profit at all costs. When profit is the only ethical imperative that you have, you end up here. Which is that you end up with, this situation that we've got right now, which is that no matter how many babies die, no matter how many people get, severe mental illness because they're being fucked with daily, like, through the various nudges and information wars, people are unhappy, they're overworked, and capitalism doing what it does, which is that, oh, well, it's more profitable to sort of make people work from home. And because what we can do by making them work from home, by calling it hybrid and calling it, we can get them working from home, is that we can then pass on a lot of the costs. Because remember, you can't claim the costs of a home office, like wear and tear and those sorts of things. You only, again, I've worked from home on my own for like 20 years now. You can't claim like a lot of the stuff, the expenses. So they've managed to, we allow you to work at home. And it's like, well, yeah, they've also shifted the costs to the employee in their home. And then what we'll do is we'll make a home that you could actually bear working in more expensive. And what we'll do is then some startup bro or tech bro will find a mouse jiggler. So what we'll do is we'll sell them a mouse jiggler so that they can look like they're awake and around to get around to get around the surveillance. We won't look at the actual root cause. What we won't do is we won't go, okay, well, how come so everyone's trying to get a profit, are they? Oh, well, don't get me started about these mouse jigglers, right? So mouse jigglers are a device that basically keep your computer alive. So it just keeps the mouse so that it looks like you're like, working and doing stuff when you're not, right? It's like there's such an end stage capitalism product, which is that, like to show that you're at work because the employer is surveilling you, having like shifted all of their costs onto you, like the chair. Like people forget, like laptops, monitors, desks, furniture, square foot, electricity, water, all that sort of stuff. That's an overhead, okay, that the business has shifted onto people. It's like, fucking talk about a fucking hoodwink. And then basically they go, well, because we're generously letting you work from home, what we'll do is we will we'll record your screen, okay, because we want to make sure that you're working. We want to just make sure, having shared or having offloaded all these expenses to the employee and given them the privilege of working from home, we will record their screen. That's the least you can do because we did you the favor, right? How lucky are you to work from home and save us money? So what we'll do is we'll record everything. So what we'll do is we'll just record everything that you do. We'll just make sure that you are under surveillance in your own home. And what we'll do is we'll also give you a phone that must be on 24 hours a day. And, we don't know, we'll just put an enterprise level app that, key logs and checks all of your fucking conduct. And then what we'll do is we'll let capitalism do its thing. And some dickhead will turn around and sell you a mouse so that you look like you're jiggling it. Or, sell you a VPN to solve the problem that shouldn't exist in the first place. Capitalism is very good at selling you the solution to its own problem, is my point. I know I went off and I repeated myself. But I'm saying, it's absurd when you actually think about the kind of thing. It's like, rather than admit that capitalism has failed and that we need something else, and I'm not saying revolution. I'm not, I want peaceful solutions. It's like, It doesn't work. US capitalism, the way that it is functioning, is not working. It is failing. It is going in the direction that is inevitable, which is towards fascism. That's what we're seeing right now. We are seeing the rise of fascism. Okay? You are seeing that alignment. Okay? These imaginary neoliberal, neocon-like differences, right, converge into authoritarianism, anti-communism, anti-socialism, hysteria, violence, war, all of that shit. Okay? It's serious. And it's like, okay, I know that I've just sort of, made it dark, but it's like, okay, well, that's a lot. There's a lot to try and take on. And it's like, okay, so don't focus on, this is where things like this Twitter files or, where do you even begin to address these in the current climate where, I don't know how I can keep repeating myself and saying, well, this is a set of tactics. This is a set of that people don't have the critical thinking skills, the media literacy, the resources, okay, in general. Like, people just don't have the financial resources. People are just trying to keep their, like, for me, we went through this. We went through this last week where our property manager breached us for paying rent 3 days early. We always paid 3 days early to make sure that the bank clears. They didn't clear it for 5 days. She said it was 5 days late. She breached us. And we said, that's not correct. We've always paid then. She said, oh, well, and she just wouldn't listen. I said, well, you can't just do that. But again, you have to make the calculation. Our lease is up in 6 months. The property market's shit, okay? We've got nowhere to go. If we piss off our property manager, no matter what, we are now going to spend the next 6 months worried that they're going to kick us out of our house because we dared to question the fact that she actually fucked up and because we have no power. People have no resources. They just don't have the ability. Like, people are trying to eat. They can't afford fuel. They can't afford food. They can't afford fucking anything. And it's like, well, okay, well, maybe I will just try and get rich and make a mouse jiggler then. And I think that's most people's. So why would people be interested in something like the Twitter files, especially if they don't see the connection between that and the rise of fascism that is being enabled through social media, through the internet? Anyway, that's not true. Let me correct myself. You can tell I haven't streamed for a while because I'm just talking shit and I'm rambling and I sound manic. I'm not. I'm just having a few thoughts at once. But, how do you even begin to pass how the Israel-Gaza conflict is sort of, playing out, the information war there, how they're related to each other in terms of, this CCDH, like the CCDH, the ADL, those things, they're all like the same non-profits that use these tactics, and they take money from all sorts of places, right? Again, it's not about the fact that you could just point out something obvious and be considered anti-Semitic is fucking hilarious to me. But, this is where we are, because we also know that victims often become perpetrators. We're seeing that cycle play out, aren't we? And the worst perpetrators justify what they're doing because they're being victims, right? Because they were victims. A lot of victims have justified a lot of shitty things over the years. So anyway, but how do you see the relationship between that information war? If you're not seeing that, then you're insane. You haven't seen it through COVID, okay? Regardless of your position on these things, it's got nothing to do with the actual positions or the issues on anything. Like, people can, the evidence is what it is. The case law is what it is. Things need their day in court. Facts are what they are. Sometimes there's gaps in that and it takes some time to get to the truth. But, I'm wholly focused again on the thing that is detached from the facts and separate from the facts, which is the process that is followed. Okay, fascism is a process that naturally occurs as a result of unchecked capitalism. Okay, because it leads to material conditions like this. It's what happened in the Weimar Republic, which is that like the Treaty of Versailles was designed to punish Germany for what they did in World War One. The Treaty of Versailles created the material conditions that led to, the rise of fascism. Okay, basically. So you left them in, again, I'm obviously, skimming over a lot of stuff, but I'm trying to emphasize the fact that you create neoliberalism, and neoliberal capitalism creates the conditions for authoritarianism to rise, for people to be so desperate that they don't speak out, for people to just go along with it because, it's easier. And then all of a sudden, here you are, here. Right? Except it's online now. It's online. The difference is that it's online and that we can talk to each other across the world. So great. It'll spread faster. Excellent. Okay. And it's like, okay, well, so CCDH, ADL, those sorts of organizations, right? Hi, Stephen. I just saw you. So they, these things, I know I'm rambling and I'm a little bit scattered today because first of all, I haven't streamed in ages because I'm just not feeling it. And I had no real plan for this other than to just sort of talk around it. But it's like, it also just feels pointless. I think we're all at a point where I'm just so over all of it, right? Because I spent years. I mean, I've been on target. I've been on track with this shit, right? I saw it coming. And so I've been pretty consistent, which is I saw this shit 2014 fandoms sort of got a bit crazy and people were not okay in the fandoms and stuff. And they were just, the comment section sort of started to hit the real world in quite a meaningful and profound way. And obviously the most famous case of that is Donald Trump himself. Being elected, right? But that it was earlier than that. Like, this is stuff that was happening, this is the Obama campaign. Like, this acronym shit that I talked about just now, it's the same people who worked on the Obama campaign in 2008. Like, none of this is actually very new, but it just gets worse and worse and worse every time. And I can't believe that we are still, I'm just amazed that we still have to say, that's bullshit, right? I'm just amazed that we can go through. Everyone's been called a Nazi, fascist, transphobe, racist, whatever. Everyone's been called that. And they still, I'm amazed. I'm absolutely flummoxed that people who have been called a TERF, okay, are suddenly going along with people because it's convenient to them, and they are far right. Okay, a lot of them. I'm not dismissing the fact that a lot of gender critical people have sort of gone down that pipeline, that far right pipeline, right? Because that's again, I don't blame the individuals. That's what fascism. If you know what fascism is and does, you know that people are going to get swept up in it. You can't save people from it. And that's the thing. That's like, you reach a point where you go, I can't save you from this information war. I can't. I don't have the resources. You're not listening. I don't know what side of history I'm going to be on. And that's the one who opposed this shit. But, sorry, I think am I lagging? I seem to be. No, it seems to be out of sync. Whatever. Who cares? If it is, you'll live. But yeah, so Pete Crazy was seeing Israel accuse Greta Thunberg of being anti-Semitic because of the octopus plushie. Yeah, I know. And they believe with it. It's like, what the fuck? It's like, how is this not obvious? How many times do you need to go through this before people go, well, like, oh yeah. I'm still seeing people who are called a Nazi because they said that domestic violence victims might be feel unsafe. Hang on, I think my have I fallen out of sync? Just give me a sec. Let me turn off the preview. I don't know if I am. Let me turn this preview off and see how it goes. It's saying no drop frames and that it's not out of sync, but the preview is out of sync, so I don't know what's going on, but that's okay. But like, I'm sitting here, and like, this is why I haven't streamed. Okay, it's okay. So I haven't streamed because I've been busy, but busy. I mean, anyone who's like knows anything, right, knows that busy isn't an excuse. Busy's not a reason, right, for not doing things. Busy's a matter of what your priorities are. But a big part of the reason why I haven't bothered to stream is because I just don't have, like, I don't have words for people. Like, I feel like we are living in, I'm open to the idea that I'm too online, but it's not that. It's not that, because I'm really actually not, believe it or not. I'm not that online. Sorry, hang on, give me a second. Whatever, it'll work. But I've just not known what I can say, because I think I talked about this in my test stream the other day. Was it the other day? Where I said, like, I try to figure out where I can add some value or add something of substance. But I've spent nearly 5 years, or 4.5 years on, I mean, obviously longer than that, but 4.5 years on YouTube and doing video. Like, part of the reason I do this is so that I don't get camera shy and hate the camera and vomit and because I don't like the camera, right? That's part of the only reason I did this is because I wanted to overcome my fear of the camera, and it was holding me back because I kept being asked and approached for various TV things and stuff, and I was turning those down, right? And then I was like, well, I'd better do video because, it's going to hold me back because people aren't reading long form content anymore. And this was before TikTok. People aren't reading long form anymore. You can't get them to read anything. So I suppose I'd better do video. Turns out they don't watch long form content either. But I've tried to be of value where I can, outside of that sort of project, right? I've tried to just talk through things and tried to at least add something of value on top of what everyone else who oversimplifies it or has, a hot take or whatever. I've always tried to go a little bit deeper than that and try to add something. And the reason why I haven't streamed in the last, I've kind of just I've given up. Like, I feel like this is a train it's a train that's just headed off the bridge, and there is nothing that I can do that actually will do anything. My reach is fucked. I'm just algo fucked. Okay, I don't have the resources because my cost of living is like tripled as well. Right, when I first decided to start doing this brand Taya thing and invest in my own brand, like the cost of living, I didn't expect to be algo fucked the way that I was. I had a whole plan to sort of, promote myself and all that stuff, but it just didn't work out that way. Rent doubled, everything went up, cost of living went up, and things just, I honestly got so much wrong because I really thought that I underestimated what I was up against. I thought that I've spent 3 years, most of the first 3 years was just trying to figure out how to phrase things in a way that would even get people to listen at all on political theory or on tech, which both of those things can be tremendously boring. How to make it entertaining. I'm not an entertainer. I'm not, I can be funny and I write jokes every day and all that sort of stuff. But, and I obviously know how to do engaging content. But there's only so much you can do before, and I really underestimated how disinterested people were in how much of their information is bullshit, or at least cherry picked. Okay, so I'm at a loss because it feels like people just don't care. You can fight against people who don't know but care. You can't educate someone who doesn't know and doesn't care to know. And that was the thing I think that I got wrong, which was that I overestimated how much people would care that the media that they're consuming is, corrupt and false and manipulating them. Like most of social media is bought and paid for now and managed and manipulated by, advertisers and, whether it's big brands or the shady, digital marketing agencies, or through SEO or through those things. And I am just, the reason why I haven't done is I'm at a loss, which is that, I'm just been, it just reminds me of the time when my husband got injured at work. And the insurance company they just starved you out because they've got more resources. They just starved him out. They just didn't, he didn't do anything wrong. He had the right to a claim. He, did everything the right way. They put him under surveillance. Like, this is an insurance company, right? They put him under surveillance, and then they just made us fight for a year. They didn't realise that he was married to me, which meant eventually that got settled. But at the same time, right, it destroyed our marriage. It, it caused stress to the point where, my son was also then born, anyway. But, it caused a tremendous amount of stress on our family. We ran out of money completely. Like, if we hadn't settled when we did, we'd have been bankrupted, right? It's, the thing is that it doesn't matter what the law says, right? This is the reality where we live, which is like, it's one thing to argue about what the law says. And again, I'm not saying that, a lot of the reason why I decided to sort of retrain as a lawyer is because it's the skill set that I can use. You can use the procedural stuff, right? You can be annoying to people if you're a lawyer, right? You can, you can pick some fights. You can have the fights, okay? But it doesn't necessarily mean that just because the law is in your favour and you have rights, that you're able to exercise those rights or defend those rights when the resources outstrip you. Like I told you about the property manager who has been so unbelievably horrible and incompetent, and we've got no recourse because guess what? If we push back, they have the right to just not renew the lease, right? Or they can just, we don't have recourse. Where else are you going to go? There's no properties, But it's the same thing with social media. It's like, I can't stream on Facebook at the moment because I saw a fucking meme on Kiwi Farms. I didn't think, it was one of those things where I didn't fully comprehend the meme. It made me laugh and I shared it, and it had a Nazi symbol in it. It was a joke. But Facebook's algorithm detected the Nazi symbol in the meme, and I got a fucking ban for a joke, right? And so I they've shut off my streaming and reels and all that sort of stuff, my ability to monetize. I don't have recourse. It's not like I can say, oh, you made a mistake. You don't have any recourse. There's nothing you can do. And if you try, they've got more resources than you. There's no point, right? It's the same thing with Twitter. It's the same thing with your boss. It's the same thing. It's like, this is not the free market. And I don't know who thinks it is. But anyway, that's, part of the reason. And I don't like to sort of whinge and gutsake and be, I do try to add value, but I haven't. I'm obviously at a loss because people just don't really want to know. It's like, it's like they're in this weird trance where oh, well, as long as it affirms me, then it doesn't matter. Or as long as I am okay, it doesn't matter. As long as I have shelter, it doesn't matter. as long as I don't lose my job, it's perfectly fine to shut up about, what's happening in Gaza. It's as long as I'm okay, that's all that matters. And I think that that's been, again, like I said, you can understand why without necessarily agreeing with it. And I think that a lot of it is that I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. I think I'm just disappointed. And I don't know what to say. I'm at a loss because I don't know. All I see is like the biggest liars, the most disingenuous, people who have overtly just said that they are manipulating the algorithm, right, to get ahead. And the people who won't, the people who overtly lie, who just basically show you they're a psychopath and they get rewarded for it. And you go, well, okay, well, I suppose that, well, what do I do then? Okay, well, this world is run by bad people. And I do, again, I'm okay, correction. The world is run in a way that rewards certain behaviours. Bad people are better at it, but good people go along with it because, it's hard. It's hard to go against the grain. And, like I said, I underestimated this shit. I thought that I'd just go back to normal, and I haven't. And I don't know why, but it's just been one of those things where I thought eventually that, I would, if I just kept at it and kept speaking truth and kept trying to do the right thing, kept trying to add value to the conversation, kept doing, doing the hard work of sort of checking that things are true and doing my, due diligence and all that sort of stuff and getting another degree because, that would help. Eventually they'll listen to me after my 30th year in tech and another degree. Maybe then I'll get heard. I'll just keep doing the thing, keep trying new things, keep trying something different, pivot. It's what I come from. But there comes a point where you're just like, this is you're an idiot. You're banging your head against a brick wall. And people are just going along with this shit. And a lot of it feels inevitable. And again, history tells us that a lot of it probably is, which is that, you either get socialism or barbarism. Rosa Luxemburg. You kind of, it just feels, I said to Paul, like the other day, it honestly just feels like we've just got to decide to sit and enjoy the show, and know when to end it. And I know that sounds like dark. I'm not trying to be dark, but it's like, and again, I'm trying to say it in a way that's like ironic and dark. It's dark humor. I'm not saying that, there's anything to worry about, but at the same time, there's this thing with AI, which again, AI is its own thing. It's a bit ridiculous. And, I think that a lot of the fear mongering around AI has nothing to do with the actual shock, horror, surprise, has absolutely nothing to do with AI itself and the real dangers of AI, but rather regulatory capture and owning the market and cornering the market and the United States controlling AI. For a geopolitical, the whole geopolitical stuff is probably more important than, care. They don't give a fuck about us. We're collateral damage. They don't give a fuck about our ability to eat. I mean, that's become apparent that, our governments, again, collectively are oriented in a certain way where good people end up rationalizing away the exact same behavior that a psychopath who didn't care about anything or anyone is like, well, your intentions were good. Well, same result. Same fucking result. We're still censored. We still can't say anything. We can't afford to eat. We can't rent. We got no freedom of movement. We can't express ourselves. Food's fucking expensive. Nuclear wars we're on the brink of nuclear war. I'm being called a fucking Jew hater for constantly. for nothing, when that's never been the case at all. There is no evidence for that, and yet people can just say that shit. You know, it's like, well, okay, well, at least I'm not a TERF anymore. That's good to know. At least I've been upgraded. It's like, fucking hell. You know, like, we can't... What are good faith... What are the good people supposed to do? Do we just roll? You know, do we just roll over and just... You know? And that's why I haven't really bothered with a lot of this stuff, because it just feels futile. You know? It feels like Ben Shapiro, you know, and those people can just... They'll get away with it. They just get away with it. The money's on their side. You know, Donald Trump, you know, everyone who sucks off Joe Rogan, Elon Musk fans, they just go, oh, yeah, yay, good. That fuckstick has an AI. What could go wrong there? Oh, good, it can tell jokes. Well, that's a fucking relief, isn't it? Awesome. It's like, okay, oh, good, Amazon. Amazon and Meta have decided to start sharing your data because they've made a convenient button where you can sit and shop on Amazon from within Facebook. I am fucking excited about that. Awesome. Can't see how that's going to be used against me, given that I posted a fucking photograph that was a meme and I've been fucking unpersoned for a month because of a joke. I haven't been unpersoned. I can still post, but you get what I'm saying. An algorithm can decide that I made a mistake. I can't fix it. I can't contact anyone to say, oh, sorry, the punishment's a bit extreme. I fucked up. Sorry. You know, no. You get the fucking Filipino, like, person, again, who's just trying to pay their bills, who if they deviate from the fucking, like, manual, are on the streets. So... no point to... They can't fucking think creatively or question anything either. Because, you know, again, I understand why. Because survival at the end of the day matters more than your right to speak. And unfortunately, I'm so stubborn. And I think it's actually... You know what? It's not actually so stubborn. It's not actually... I'm honest with you, it's not stubborn or integrity at this point. It's that I fucked up and I can't get out, so I've got nothing to lose. So I just say what I'm thinking. But for the you know, I would nuke all of it if you know, but I'm just like, other than changing my identity, I don't know what to do. So I just need to lean into it. But it's just like, fucking hell. Like, why? How did we get here? You know, I sound crazy. I sound like I'm just a bit, I think I'm just a bit despondent at the moment because of all of this stuff. And everyone's focused on, oh, well, Matt Taibbi's far right. I don't know. I think it's kind of relevant that a not-for-profit can collude with the media and Wikipedia to destroy the only socialist, you know, Jeremy Corbyn, right? That whole thing about Jeremy Corbyn, it was coordinated. Oh, yeah, that's not... Oh, no, of course not. Anti-Semite. Oh, yeah, you must love Hamas then. So how do you... The reason why I don't stream is because they end up like this, because it ends up in a full-blown rant where I sound fucking crazy. And it's like, I'm normal. Everyone feels this way. They're like, everything is fucked and I don't know how to fix it. One person can't fix it, and the only people who have the resources or ability to fix it have no interest in fixing it. Because they're all using these fucking troll farms. They've all got their fucking foundations and not-for-profits where they can, you know, not pay any tax. They're all part of this. It's like, okay, to varying degrees, of course, yes. But it's just like, okay, well, great. What do I do then? What do I do? It's like, okay, well, I suppose I'll, you know, again, like I'm obviously, you know, retraining. But a 46-year-old fucking lawyer in Western Australia. No one gives a fuck about that. You know, because apparently the Ivy Leagues are where it's at. Apparently that's where all the smart people go. They only ended the world. I mean, it's only Stanford colluding with the CCDH to like perpetuate government censorship of everyone that to see that says the word cunt on social media, which just happened to be my brand for 10 years. It's like, fucking hell. Fucking cunts. Should have gone to Stanford. Anyway, I don't know what's going on. But yeah, so I sound like I'm depressed. I'm not. I'm just having a fucking laugh. You know, you just get to that point where it's like, what's the point? Who cares? It's like no one's, you know, I'm not saying that you're nobody, but, you know, there's not that many people watching. Let's just, you know. What happened to my screen? I can't see anything. Okay, there we go. But anyway, so like this came up my... Where are we? Let's go. Let's go to here. If you're going to design a website, by the way, fucking center the content. And I will show you why. That's too bright now. Turn that down. There we go. Hang on a sec. So let's screen share this shit. And of course there's a fucking pop-up, because of course there is. Oop, this one, share this tab. Okay. This is why you should center your content. Because it's going to be on the left and it drives me nuts. But anyway. So there's a new bill tabled, right, to bring much needed accountability to political advertising. Now, the problem is that this is actually much needed. It is much needed, right? So in Australia, we've got this thing where the Electoral Commission can only so we've got this sort of independence of like government agencies, right? So they're kind of siloed. So we've had this problem for many years now, since the internet, but even worse now. Okay. Where you've got ACMA, okay, which is the Communications and Media Authority. Then you've got the Australian Electoral Commission, okay? Then you've got the ACCC, okay, the Competition and Consumer Commission. Then you've got the Information Commissioner. So they're discrete silos and discrete government departments. Now, what they do is that they actually don't really collaborate in the way that this is what the difference between, you know, like me and a full-on cooker is that those government departments generally do not coordinate. Now, I happen to know how little they coordinate because I've been involved in some of these things over the years. But those things I think the thing that people need to understand is that the government can only act and enforce things, right? So the way that we work is that the government can only enforce things that they have the power to enforce, okay? We have rights by default, okay? It is only when the government actually explicitly gives itself those powers through Parliament, okay, that the government department has the power to do so, right? That's a good thing, because you don't want a government department that can just make up the rules as it goes along, right? We've seen that with robo-debt and how, you know, if you're Australian, you know about the robo-debt stuff that's happened, right? Which was that one of the things that the former Prime Minister did was that he would sort of sneak in regulations and use policy and use like sub-regulations and that sort of stuff to bypass that process. So he would use regulations and bylaws and various other policy instruments to. So the most famous one that I'm thinking of is the statute barring. So if a debt is older than 6 years, you have the right to, and you haven't obviously paid anything or acknowledged the debt, or you dispute the debt, after 6 years that debt gets expired. So the idea is that, you know, you get another chance. So again, there's foundational stuff there. So statute barring of a debt. So after 6 years, if you ignore it long enough, it goes away, right? That's the premise of the law. Now, that's something that is a fundamental sort of thing within our government, right? Where you can, you know, after bankruptcy, you're either discharged bankrupt, but after 6 years, statute barred, right? Anyway, I'm not going to explain what statute barring is. But that's the gist of it, right? But basically, with government debts, what he did was made it a policy that exempted Centrelink debts. Centrelink is our Department for Social Security, right? They'd be like the Employment Office or, like whatever, where you get your Social Security, right? So Centrelink managed the welfare payments and that sort of stuff. So if you ever found to have a debt with Centrelink, what he did was, prior to this robo-debt scandal, right, he passed. They colluded to have this policy, make it a matter of policy that exempted Centrelink debts from statute barring, which meant that they would never expire. That, much like a tax debt or HEX debt or whatever, I can't think of the word, discharged or whatever. The word I'm trying to think of doesn't go away with bankruptcy. There's certain things that are exempt from bankruptcy, right? It's the same thing. Like, so they made it so that the statute barred debts can't. Anyway, I can't remember what my point was. Anyway, I wasn't planning to talk about this, and now I've fallen over myself. Sorry about that. So anyway, but so basically what they did was do like shifty business with policy to pass things that, if it had parliamentary scrutiny, it would not have passed, right? Like the Labor, Greens and One Nation would have opposed that, which is that, like if you owe money to the government and they chase you for 6 years and you don't admit it or whatever, you should have the same rights as, anyway, so that's a whole thing. The principle there is that they don't have the powers unless they are granted the powers expressly, right? Now, and that's why with our government departments, you've got this, this silo. So the problem with political advertising, right? So we've got a big problem where there's been high court cases around this stuff, but, but where people will do like leaflet drops with bullshit and a QR code. Like during COVID, you saw this stuff, right? But you can't necessarily enforce it because the AEC is not allowed to, because they are considered independent and they are running the elections, they are not allowed to comment on what is true or not, other than how the process works. So misinformation around the election process, such as, the election is on Saturday morning and it is at your local primary school, or whatever, okay? That's very limited. So the way that they can advertise, that they can only address misinformation around that. ACMA is the Australian Communications and Media Authority. Now, they are the advertising standards people, right? But if you don't know, first of all, who's funding it, I think they've got to be within the remit. I think, if I remember correctly, you've got to be part. Anyway. Point is that falls in the gaps between advertising regulation, the Electoral Commission, Information Commissioner, and a bunch of other things. So there's this problem where you can't necessarily enforce political misinformation, disinformation. I'm talking about deliberate misinformation, disinformation, because of that gap, right? And it's been an ongoing problem, and where it's clearly false, there's no real way to enforce it. Now, South Australia has a law that has actually worked really quite well, where, so they've got the Commonwealth Electoral Amendment, Voter Protections in Political Advertising Bill. So it comes off growing calls for reform in political advertising in recent years. This has been going on for a long time. So these calls only grew louder off the back of widespread accusations of mis and disinformation during the recent Voice to Parliament referendum. It's not a new thing. This has come up like several times. Okay. So the use of mistruth in Australian political campaigns, however, with digital giants coming under increasing pressure in recent years to better prevent the spread of mis and disinformation on their platforms. Now, it was actually the reason why, if you remember, Facebook ad library, which I've gone through, and also the Twitter, Twitter actually banned political advertising because they just put it in the fucking too hard basket, because Twitter know that you just pay an influencer and an influencer can just say, oh, it's my opinion, and they can't track where the money is. Like they don't know. And that's the problem, which is that unless you have a way of tracking influencer campaigns and branded content, there's no way of policing this. All it does is punish the people who are actually doing the right thing and disclosing those things, right? So it's like, so Twitter's original policy was to just not have political advertising and ban it. right? And whereas Facebook had the ad library, as did Google. So they've got these ad libraries where you can go in and look at them, and so independent researchers can go in and have a look at all these things, right? But that, again, like I talked about before, there's so many different ways to do it. It's basically like pointless anyway, right? You've got to. The bad guys are always 10 steps ahead of everyone else, right? So let me just see if there's a. It's interesting that you mentioned Matt Taibbi being far right. I sent you an email asking about someone he seems to be associated with. Okay, Matt Taibbi's not far right. I said he was accused of being far right. And unfortunately, I think that the problem, okay, this is the thing. Oscar Schindler. No. Okay, so when you are dealing with authoritarianism, okay, so to clarify. So when you're dealing with authoritarianism, you end up with strange bedfellows, right? It is just one of those, there's been so many figures in history, right, where they have, you get what I'm saying, right? So, I'm saying that he's gotten the propaganda treatment, right? The reason why I am a part of the reason why I'm very careful about like what I talk about is because it's just so easy to make that shit stick. Like I've been like called everything. Like all I've done is my job, but I've been called TERF and like, all that sort of stuff, right? And I didn't even know what a TERF was when I was called. I just thought that I was a feminist and always had been, and saw an interesting problem, and the rest is history there. And sort of the gender wars was kind of the training ground for the more vicious propaganda campaigns that we've seen sort of running. It's a playbook. Once you've been on the receiving end of that playbook and you are right-minded and you know how it works, it's obvious what's going on, which is just, okay, securitization and of like a certain concept or certain idea and creating an enemy and like whipping everyone into a frenzy over it. That's just the fact that the CCDH call Elon Musk's thing the authority, it's always just, and also the other thing is accuse everyone else of doing what you're doing. The authoritarian playbook, it's like, that's what you're doing. Like, what the fuck? But then I get accused of saying it, and it's like, oh, fuck. This is why I go, fuck it. Because you end up being associated with these people. Are you talking about Schellenberger? Schellenberger's gone a little bit like, see, the thing about okay, so I tend to go a little bit, the problem with this is that it overlaps too much with COVID shit and too much with COVID conspiracy stuff. And I think that those are separate. I think that what the far right have done, and they do well, and they constantly do well, and when I say the far right, I mean the United States at this point, media, right? Everyone, but it's just at a point where they're indistinguishable from each other, aside from a few sort of, principled people, is lumping in things that are separate and unrelated to each other. So, and capturing sort of your average normie in that. So, that's obviously thought termination and that sort of stuff. So you got to understand that stuff, how it works technically and psychologically you got to keep your nose clean. But so what they will do is by association, you just, get swept up. So it doesn't matter if what you're saying is true or not, or you've got a point, or regardless, what happens is you get accused of being associated with this far right individual, okay? And they make it true. And then the more that you deny it and the more that you fight it, the more you look crazy, because you're more... Graham Linehan is one example of someone who's fucking lost it that way, where he's fighting for his fucking sanity and you see that. And that's happened where people have, it's like, well, no, you can actually just go, no, that's not true, and move on and go, I refuse to engage further, prove it. There's no evidence of that. And that's been my position a lot of the time, which is like, show me any time other than Facebook the nuts. It's like, it looks bad from a metadata point of view, but, you know, like, show me any evidence where I've been on the hateful or wrong side of things, okay? I've been on the slightly paranoid from time to time, but, you know, if you don't want people to be paranoid, maybe don't call your agencies another acronym and Shadow Inc. And it's like, what the fuck? So, but, you know, don't do stuff that makes people paranoid. And I wouldn't be, right? But it's very easy to just lump people in together, okay? And unfortunately, the problem is that the way that this works is that you end up isolated and shunned and shouting into the void to the point where you will talk to anybody. And you'll talk to anybody who will talk to you. Like, I've gone through that where I found myself, like, it was so frosty for so long. And I hadn't done anything. And I didn't even know what I'd done. I didn't even know what I'd said. And then all of a sudden, it's just like everyone's, and it's like, then people sort of start circling and going, oh, well, I'm your friend, I'm your friend, I'm your friend. And then obviously there's bots and various AI things that do that as well to try and nudge you. If you've got a platform, no matter how small, or if you are putting yourself out there like streaming or whatever, you're going to have people that offer you money or offer you in certain incentives for you to be their mouthpiece and share their shit. They want lots of voices to do that. They want you to cherry pick, and they will sort of use various operant conditioning and various sort of reward and punishments and rewards to try and sort of co-opt well-meaning content creators even without their knowledge. It doesn't even have to be with their knowledge. You can do that shit without someone's knowledge, which is you got a credit card and 10 sock Patreon accounts, and you can just give people, sign up to the top tier and, you know, pay and withdraw, pay and withdraw, pay and withdraw until they fucking, you know, start to omit certain things, right? It's just pretty easy to do. Oh, good night, Stephen. Good to see you. Yeah, I'm just rambling. I don't even know what I'm just talking shit, mostly because I'm fucking exhausted. Also because my nose is itchy. Haven't streamed in a while, and the world's fucked. But I'm fine. I'm just, you know. But a lot of the reason why I don't stream is because a lot of it seems like futile, and a lot of it seems like no one wants to hear what I've got to say. I appreciate the fact that you guys show up and do interact. I appreciate that very much. But I don't know what I can say that's going to be any different to what I've been saying. You know, like a lot of why I feel like I'm just like, I don't know what more I can do to convince people to think about like the messages that they're sharing, like the people that they're associating with. Oh yeah, sorry, about the far right thing. I'll be interested to talk about that. I'm always interested to know who's who, like, because obviously I can see the money behind the scenes, like, because one thing that I do know is like what resources it takes. Like this is part of the reason, again, part of it was because I was fucking afraid of the camera and all that stuff, right? And I needed, like, when you'll notice that when I stopped streaming for a while, my skills atrophy. Like, it's not something that I'm not one of those people that turns the camera on and I'm like, here I am and I'm polished. Like, if I don't stream for a while, I waffle, I'm unfocused, you know, all that stuff. So part of the reason why I try to stream regularly is so that I can, you know, just speak clearly and exercise my voice and all that sort of stuff, right? Because I work at home and I'm like, a lot of it is online. I do need to just talk to someone that's like in the real, you know, out there, right? I need that skill does actually need to continue to be, it's like exercise, it needs to be maintained, right? But outside of that, like, I did actually also, I suspected that people were not being forthcoming on like what it actually takes to set something up. I don't need to actually share that. Hang on, let me just switch scenes. Hang on. I just realized that I was... but what it actually takes in terms of resources, time, networks, there were things that I was like, well, yeah, I know that what it takes to develop content from an agency point of view, but you'd hire a film crew and you'd do that stuff. I know what it takes to do it to a certain level with a webcam, or I know what it takes to do But I obviously never made my own show. I've never, I wasn't really doing YouTube. I mostly write, and I can shit out a blog post in a couple of hours, but I never really did the, and there were gaps for me. So why I set it up was because I was like, something's amiss here with these content creators, because they're making it look like they're in their, that it's organic and that they're in their like little, how do they live? How do they pay their bills? How are they spending 12, 10, 8, 10 hours a day doing this and paying their bills? What is it about their content and their message and what they're covering and their audiences? What is it that is actually making it so that they are surviving? Because as someone who obviously since the 90s has been doing content online, I know how hard it is. I know I've, had varying degrees of success. Most of it has been consulting to other people, because my brand is dog shit now. My personal brand, dog shit, but I can advise if people implement, if you're already famous and already got a profile, or you're algorithmically green, you'll travel with my advice. But I can't get out. Like, there's no point. I can't get out of it for whatever reason. I'm just throttled by someone or somewhere. But that's fine. Ironically, I've probably got the best relationship with Meta than anyone else, believe it or not, and I fucked that up with a joke. So who knows? I'm pretty good with LinkedIn, but somewhere along the line, because again, remember, when you're on a list, especially when you're sort of talking about CISA and DHS and all of these sort of agencies, those agencies actually distribute those lists to every platform. So when you're banned from one, that's broadcast. So your risk assessment is attached to your identity and email and everything. So you are not just limited on Twitter, but you're limited on Instagram, Facebook, all those things. You have you're de-amplified everywhere. So if you find yourself on the wrong side of a list, like I have, and various, again, I don't know how or why. I can guess why, because I talk about bots. So it's probably a combination of like various decentralized things, plus being on, it's platform manipulation stuff. So that's the difference between someone like me and some cooker who's a fucking conspiracy theorist is thinking that someone at the government is trying to suppress Taya. They're not. They're not just physically trying to suppress Taya. Okay, what it is I've fallen through the cracks through a various crash test dummy shit. I go in because something didn't add up, and I wanted to see, I wanted to experience it, and I fucked around and found out. Right, I've been meaning to write this, but I fucked around and found out with it. I was wrong about some stuff. I underestimated the degree to which this stuff could be manipulated. I thought that it was oh, well, if I just alert the industry to the fact that this stuff is like an open attack vector that that people are abusing, and I reported back my findings, that people would want to close those gaps. And it's no, they don't want to. They want to keep it. And that was the thing that I found really frustrating, interesting, fucking disturbing, was, like I said, how many people don't actually... I thought it was a matter of them not having the information or having the tools or knowing the things, because a lot of the stuff that I've worked on is difficult to understand. It's quite impenetrable in terms of, crossing. It's it crosses 4 disciplines. Okay, if you're being generous. Okay, so if you could argue, if you go, depending on which direction you go, it's more than that. Okay, because that's not even including the computer science part of it. Well, there's egghead shit that I don't understand, right? But it crosses legal, political, and political theory, psych theory, tech, and a whole. It's a multidisciplinary thing, extremely complex, with a lot of bad actors and a lot of bullshit and a lot of misleading stuff. And so I sat there and I was like, well, I see this for what it is. We need to close this somehow. We need to close these gaps. And it's I'm not... Okay, yeah. So he said, you seem to be describing a social score system in Western countries run by corporations that has even less accountability than credit companies with credit scores. Well, yeah, it is to an extent that that's basic. I mean, if you go back and watch my very first stream in 2018, I talked about a product called, it's effectively that. I don't like using like that hyperbolic language because it's not, I mean, well, like I said, in practice, that's how it operates. I'm not necessarily, I mean, I called this out for years. Like I talked about brand yourself. These things are effectively a social score. You're correct. But what I'm trying to do is not say there's too many people who are focused on, it's easy to name the problem. I'm far beyond that. I named the problem years ago. Yeah, social score, privatized social score. We know about that, right? That's like obvious that's what's happening through data and various other things. The question is, how do we put that back in a box? How do we, again, it's not even really my chief concern because that's like a baseline take. Not to be dismissive, but I'm saying that is like the obvious take. Of course, it's a social score, privatized social score. Obviously, like anybody who's across their theory knows that's how that was the inevitable conclusion of capitalism plus the internet. We've been talking about this shit for like decades, right? What I'm concerned with is how we change course, how we reverse that, how you fix it. I've always been concerned with fixing it more than diagnosing it because the diagnosis is pretty fucking obvious. And there's a lot. So again, this is unfortunately the business of the IDW and these people is to constantly talk about problems and never coming to the party with solutions. Solutions to complex problems are a lot harder, right? And so I've been more concerned with the actual answers. So that's why, retraining in law to try and get regulatory things, various, legal action. The alternative dispute resolution process, I think, is a big part of like how we can move forward with this stuff, try to come to some agreement, conciliation with users, putting users back at the center of product. These antitrust, obviously, all those sorts of things as well. But that said, I also don't necessarily like one of the things that I've got a problem with American analysis. Like this is one of the things with Crystal Ball gives me the shits. I generally she's all right, but like where she says that tech should be a public utility, and it's like I don't want a US government run fucking public utility. Go fuck yourself. No, you no. That's a very US centric view, right? Because one thing that I've noticed with the American analysis is that they're just chiefly concerned with spying on American citizens. It's perfectly fine if it's me. And it's like, well, no, that's not. It's not right for anybody, right? But so just to answer your question, yes, the answer is social score in quotes, right? But I've been beyond that. I sit there and solutions are harder because the actual solutions require you to go granular, to define it in a granular fashion. It's easy to turn around and say you're anti-woke. What the fuck does that mean? Define what you mean by woke. Are you talking about online SJWs? Are you talking about branded content and motivations for content creators? Are you talking about ESG? Are you talking about, the clear, are you talking about philanthropy and philanthropic foundations and tax avoidance? Are you talking about, the big brands incentives to sort of, rainbow wash and green wash what they're actually doing? Are you, be specific. What do you mean? Each of those things has and that's what at the beginning of my stream, this is what I talked about, which was I said, like, what are the solutions? What tiny things can you break off to solve the problem? And a lot of it doesn't involve yelling about fucking trans people existing on TikTok. Like, are you talking about, I mean, I've solved most of this shit, but, again, my notebook is so fucking thick. I just don't have the resources to sort of, do anything. I don't know. If you know anyone who knows Matt Taibbi, I've actually been trying to offer him my support and help and guidance. And I don't know. I have no reach. I have no resources. I've been doing this for years, and as much as I appreciate you being here, just, it's, I'm stretched. I'm stretched too thin. But what solution are you looking at? Okay. are you at, well, what's the next step? So, okay, are we looking to regulate? Like this is what I was talking about with the funnels, right? All right, so a digital agency who's got a PAC. What law do you want to pass there? Are you going to outlaw? Are you going to make it unlawful or illegal for a LLC to set up a PAC? Or, so when you look at that model, so you've got that model, right? You've got the digital agency at the middle center. You've got these not-for-profits around there, okay? Then you've got a PAC here. Then you've got the technology and the CRM and all that sort of stuff. What part of that are you going to, what law are you going to pass that short-circuits that? What's the implications of that? Is it to make sure that if a digital agency is running ads, that needs to be made? Are all ads part of a public ledger? Well, that seems like a Supreme Court that seems already unconstitutional on its face. So actually, that gets back to the law, right? The disinformation law, the one that I was talking about, right? The one, sorry, my brain faded. The one where in Australia, the one where she's trying to the Communicate Elections Act with the false political advertising, right? That bill at the moment. I can't remember. Sorry, my brain. I've been talking too long and I changed gears and my ADD just went fucking ballistic. Just give me a second. So let me think. So you've got that law. Okay. You got this bill that says, well, you can't share bullshit. You can't share lies. It's illegal for you to share lies online about elections. Okay. We have a High Court case that says otherwise, that basically says that you have freedom of political expression. Okay. So that's binding, right? That's binding. We've got freedom of political expression. It's even harder in the United States because you got the First Amendment, which is a lot more restrictive on what you can police when it comes to speech, right? And this will happen. So with, like in Australia, so let's use this example. Basically, well, the intent of the bill is good. Okay, but the details matter. So what are we specifically asking? Are we asking for people? Because once you can outlaw the spreading of mis and disinformation, okay, in an election. So make it illegal with a fine or able to be enforced or whatever. Okay, so what that bill does is gives, I can't remember. I don't think it's the AEC. I think it might be, I can't remember. It might be ACMA. Gives them the power to take action against people who deliberately spread falsehoods during an election campaign to protect election disinformation. Okay? Fair enough. But what happens when bad guys are always 10 steps ahead? So you go, okay, well, what about influencers? What about me? What if someone calls me and says, I want you to share XYZ story? Okay. That's actually happened. Okay. That's actually happened where somebody has actually approached me and asked me to share a certain story. That is not true. Okay. With promises of like supporting me to run for parliament and that sort of shit. That was weird. Okay. What if that, but I'm an Australian citizen with the right to vote. What if that's my political opinion? I have the right to freedom of political expression. That is enshrined. That is like, a landmark case, right? Which is that you have political expression protected and enshrined in the Constitution. Okay. When you go doing that, they're going to outlaw Clive Palmer. Fair enough. Take action against Clive Palmer. Fair enough. But what about me? In the United States, corporations have the right to speech. How are you going to outlaw that? It will work through the courts, but that takes a decade. Okay. And that's why it's like, well, yeah, you can say, I can name the problem and say we've got a social score. That's, of course, yes. But what are we actually proposing? Banning TikTok. Okay, what the fuck? What does that mean? Okay, well, no, you can't do that. First of all, it doesn't work. Okay. Because that will just, I don't think you should ban TikTok. I think, but it's about the next. Okay, one of the things that I've said before, which is get beyond steps 1 and 2. Like most people are beyond steps 1 and 2. Think about steps 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, and this is where like with let's use the gender debate as one thing, because I've seen a lot of gender critical feminists sort of fall down this thing into the conservative voting thing. I'm not voting. I'm voting conservative because they're the only party who can tell me what a woman is. Well, that's a bit counterproductive, isn't it? Given that again, think it through. What does that mean? So you're voting for a government who cuts aged care, cuts daycare, is anti-woman in every other respect. The Prime Minister wants women to stay at home in the kitchen. He's in a Pentecostal church. He is in, he's an evangelical Christian. He panders to racism, but he's think it through. What does it mean? What is the next step? What happens? You make the decision from an emotional level. And again, this is just one of the things I've noticed about the IDW types as well, or the far right media, is that they will never actually name the specific. They won't define things. So they'll talk about some enemy like wokeism, or we're not allowed to talk about this while talking about it. They'll always talk about some imaginary they or imaginary they them, or some sort of vague concept. Russell Brand does this too. Some them, okay, versus being specific. Okay, what specific thing are you talking about? When you talk about woke, are you talking about gender studies departments in American universities? Because that's just like capitalism doing its thing, which is that, if you've been to a university in the last 10 years, even in Australia, right, where I've watched in the last 20 years since my undergrad, and then masters, and now I've got that sort of 20-something years of experience of seeing what's happened with the universities. And also I was in student politics and on university council and things when I was younger. So I understand that, first of all, the crazy lefty college campus people have always been there. You just give them busy work and send them on their way. You give them a special project, right? They're always there. But what's happened is that research grants, right? Research grants, industry partnerships, a lot of the journalists and stuff in journalism school, they're partnering with Google, like Tableau, when those big tech companies are sponsoring or supporting, you think Google gives an education discount and Apple gives an education discount out of the goodness of their fucking heart? Of course they don't. They're trying to build that loyalty so that people are, they're building brand loyalty, in the academy, right? But that can be more extreme to the point where, I did work with the CRCs where they commercialize research. So they'll take a PhD student who's just doing an engineering thesis, and you partner them up. And they're building some tech, and they'll partner them up with the big corporations to see how they can commercialize that research in order to get that PhD done. So that kid's already compromised before he's even done, and those guys are circling around and exploiting that tech, right? That's industry partnerships, the CRCs. Capitalism is just doing its thing. It's buying its way into credibility. And of course people are not going to do research that goes against their self-interest. Right, obviously, that's easily explained in America. And also you've got a country, an education system for elite kids, rich kids, where, the $100,000 for an undergrad degree, of course they're going to, and stupid. So they're really not very bright. They have $100,000. Well, we'd better do that, make an easy degree for them then, shouldn't we? It's just basic free market share. For people who are so pro free market, they don't seem to understand how the basics of the free market operates, which is that the $100,000 and $200,000 and $300,000 for a 3-year PhD A rich dummy is going to get a PhD and a poor smart person ain't. Okay? It's capitalism. It's great. So that's one part. You see what I'm saying? Like, but what solution are you talking about? Okay, well, universities should be publicly funded. Okay. No research grants anymore. Okay. Who's going to go for that? That's, yeah, anyway, that's just saying, they talk around the problem, but they're never going to actually come with a solution. They're just talking, that's why it's just content. It's just content whinging about a problem that's always existed, that's obvious. Like, I can't believe watching these like gender critical types. It's like, yeah, you've been saying the same thing for 7 years. Have you moved forward at all? Do you have any real proposed anything? Like, I've gotten I've moved on from like so many things from that. Like, what the fuck? I've built like, you still have no solution. You're still just arguing on the internet, naming the same thing. And you've not, there's so many people that are like, okay, in this game, you see somebody who's like, every 3 months, you'll see some new person pop up and go, what is wokeism? And wokeness. It's like, what are you talking about? It's solved. We solved it. It's fucking, define it. Okay. And what's your policy solution? Okay. Get money out of politics. Okay. All right. What are you going to do? You're going to make it illegal for corporations to be doing brand campaigns. What's your solution to it? Okay. Are you going to make it what are you talking about? Take the money out of politics, problem goes away. But unfortunately, they won't pay the far right, okay, or the right wingers. All of America's far right at this point. Like, mainstream political thing is far right at this point. There's the differences are meaningless, quibbles at this point. You've got they're united on censorship for a start. They're united on money and politics for a start. They're definitely not going to make laws that make it so that they don't get paid. They're not going to do that. It's just, they're not going to legislate against their own fucking interests. It's like, fucking hell. Like, yeah, okay. I don't know. Are you new? I don't know what to tell you, but like, yeah, anyway. This woke shit, it's like, it's content. It's a content factory where everyone can get rich writing about what wokeism is for the fucking 1000th time, but never actually talk about what it actually is and what the solutions are. Solutions are material analysis and class analysis and critical thinking skills and actually like thinking about solutions and definitions and details. And, there's a whole industry dedicated to, like, I've talked about this in previous streams where it's like they love appointing thinkers. And it's like they're people that they think the content factory consider thinkers are people who are just asking questions out loud that everyone's asked and since answered. And if you engaged with the research outside of like media, you would have well and truly answered years ago. But they're just, it's like, oh, I'm just going to repeat another thing. Like actually, you were asking about trigonometry the other day, weren't you, Isaac? I don't know if you're still here, but you were asking me about that. And it's like, that's one thing that they do is they just talk about the left and them and tribalism. It's like, wow, gosh, welcome to third grade analysis. But they've been saying it for years and years and years. All they do is just say the same shit. It's the same shit over and over again. And it's like, it's the same. They have not moved forward in any way. They, if anything, have regressed. But they just pander to the same old people that are chronically, because their whole purpose is to ignore that capitalism is broken, that they cannot, it is untenable, that AI is going to kill work. We need things like universal income, climate change, all of these things. They are empirically, factually, ethically, everything. They are wrong. All the data doesn't back them up. So they can't then they can't veer into analysis or solutions, because every single policy solution that they advocate for is not the right solution, and it's not going to fix anything, and it goes against their ideology, which is to pillage the earth, exploit people. I've got stories, but I'm not going to share them, but you might share them privately, which is to exploit people, okay, for profit. It's perfectly fine, okay? It's a free market, Mr. Kissin. Mr. Free Market. It's a free market for him, not for people who actually have certain rates and own their own labour. Then it's not a free market. It's only a free market when he can manipulate people to get free shit. Okay? That's the mindset of these capitalists, right? Which is that they think capitalism is about exploitation, and there's nobody that sort of typifies that more than that guy. I actually argue that I believe in the market. I believe in the free market. It's just not a free. Capitalism is not a free market. Capitalism is exploitative and abusive, and relies on the free. It relies on the free market not working. So you got market failure, right? We're in market failure, right? Keynes is probably the most famous one. But so that I'm probably a Keynesian, right, in most respects, right? But Keynesian who does Marxist analysis in the strictest sense that Marx did analysis, material analysis. He wasn't advocating for any particular solutions, right? He just anyway, whatever. But I'd probably argue I'm probably more Keynesian, right? But these guys will, every single policy, so the solution. So one of the jokes with the gender critical crew, right, was like, okay, well, trans women are men. Okay, don't let them. Okay, so what's your solution then? And the only thing that you could come to is just kick them into the sun, because that's really, it doesn't go anywhere. What's your solution then? Where do they go to? Okay, where? Men's room. Okay, well, that doesn't seem very fair to a. That's not fair. That's not, like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what world do you live in? Okay, you either think that men are violent, or anyway, what's your solution? Okay, kick trans women into the sun? Okay, got that. All right, cool. What's your solution for cancel culture? Okay. So is it to change it legally so that at-will employment, so you need an actual reason to fire people? Oh, no. No, we want to be able to fire people at will and use the free market to negotiate a contract and use enterprise bargaining agreements with, gross misconduct loopholes and morality clauses. But cancel culture is bad, but we won't not. But your solution is like getting rid of that ability to fire people at will. You know that. No, don't change that. Okay, censorship is bad. No. But so what we're going to do is make it so that every decision to deplatform people is transparent, and we know, all that sort of stuff. Oh no. What you don't understand, we're seeing this with the right wingers at the moment in the US, which is that you go, no, we want to censor for us. You don't get it. You just don't get, no, because there is a solution here. It's just a solution that you don't want. It's the same thing with this marketing dark pattern, with digital agencies. It's the same thing where it's like, okay, well, we need to make it so that if you receive or even remotely suspect that digital agency is receiving political funds, they have to, there's a body there's a government agency that can audit, much like the tax office can audit so if the tax office or the IRS audits that business and sees that they're getting payments from political organisations, that they are subject to a dark money political audit. Now, those mechanisms do exist, sort of at the moment, but no, because my foundation, we're doing the right thing, and my PR agency, they're not troll farms. That's just digital marketing. We're just We're just paying people to review our services, and we're just we're not astroturfing. We're just buying some likes and inflating. And you see, it's like, yeah. And it's like, okay, so all right. But also what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that you are subjected to an audit. Well, that's against our political speech, and let's sue you into oblivion and 20 years of fucking court to protect, basically with a conservative Supreme Court that says that not only do corporations have free speech rights, but they literally have they don't have to actually disclose any of it because it's private, because they have the right to privacy as well. Whoa. Okay, so then you create a fucking legal loophole where because the corporations have a right to privacy now, that they have now got a precedent where they don't have to fucking disclose anything ever to anyone. Cool, let's think that policy. I know I haven't really been, but I'm just saying, it's like fucking hell. But no one's in the business of the actual solution. And also then they turn around and go, oh, it's authoritarian. Because the government's regulation is authoritarian, even though it's just fucking ridiculous. But anyway, I've been streaming way too long. I've been talking shit for hours. I don't even know if I've said anything worth saying, and I've probably said something fucking whatever that's going to piss people off. I don't care. You get me in a good. Got me in a. I'll do something a bit better. I've got to watch the sound. I've got to watch this and calibrate the sound. If it's too loud or too whatever, I'll adjust it. But yeah. Anyway, I'm just not really in the best headspace. But a lot of it is just despondence because it's just. I don't know what is the point, because it's like. Maybe the point is that we are just interacting, and Isaac finds me and I find Isaac and Stephen and my few people, and, and I value that a lot, and it does keep me motivated. Thanks. That's the thing that I like to hear, is that what I have to say is of value to people, because the problem is that it comes out as crazy because it's a lot. And breaking it down into small chunks it's taken me years. Like when you asked your question the other day about dark money, and I was like, fuck, I'll be like, what part? You have to be a bit more specific because, I can break it down to you, but if you go too big with this, this is the dilemma that I've got, which is that if you go too big, you head into geopolitics and you head into fucking conspiracy town very easily, and you sound crazy. But unfortunately, when you're dealing with disciplines like politics, tech, those things where people switch off anyway, the way that you reach people is at the macro level or the big thing. Oh, have you noticed this thing? Oh, isn't that? But they don't, it's like, and then you try, the way that you could try to, this is how you pull people in to seeing things the way that you see things, is that you start with something that is affecting them, right? Macro level, something they may have noticed. The war in Gaza is a good one where people are being called, anti-Semitic or whatever. COVID was a good one, but it's been a good one for that's you've seen that funnel operate with cookers, right? And I know people get upset about calling it cookers, but you know what cookers are. People have just lost their minds. There's people who had real concerns around COVID. Like myself, I made a calculation. I went, I can't talk about it. And I was already on fucking fourth strike with Twitter. I just went, I can't lose my account. You have to make these trade-offs, right? But everyone had concerns about the authoritarianism and stuff. And every so often I'd defend and say, look, Australia's not authoritarian. We're just legalistic and overly regulated and siloed. And, bureaucrats are just doing what bureaucrats do. It's more like banality of evil desk murderer stuff than it is it's not they're not capable of being authoritarian, right? It is just regulation and admin. In some ways, it is so legalized and so regulated and policy driven, right? With policies interacting with other policies and all that sort of stuff. The government remains stable because it is impossible to take over to get anything done. I had one of my first jobs when I was a public servant was when I first was, I just finished doing child protection. I didn't want to do that because it was just too, and I'd been offered the social policy thing, but I did another, just a contract role and before I got pregnant with my son in a government department. And the project was basically that I've got to be, I'm just thinking about, I've got to think about my words, because you've got to be very careful about, because it was an essential services project. But this massive project, that directly impacted a lot of people's lives, it had been delayed for years and years and years and years because the federal government minister hadn't signed the memorandum between the state minister. And so a part of my job and my supervisor's job was to respond to the ministerials and questions about the delay. And my job effectively became copy and paste, copy and paste, copy and paste. Nothing, it's like how hard it is to get stuff done in this country is, it moves slow. It's very slow, but that can be protective, right? There's a buffer that happens with too much bureaucracy. Yes, bureaucracy can be inherently authoritarian and it can create silos and blind spots, which is kind of what we see at the moment with this creeping sort of stealth authoritarianism, right? There's a paper on stealth authoritarianism that talks about this, where, you can sort of massage an overbearing bureaucratic system to your own advantage if you can sort of maneuver it, right? But for the most part, these things, aren't... people are doing, they're not. But COVID was not a top-down. It's not like one person. The way that it's framed is like that it's one person sitting on the toilet deciding, I'm going to do an authoritarian move today. It's like, it doesn't work that way. It's like ministers are wholly ineffective. They're figureheads at best. They've got to go through Parliament for the most part. Yes, what our previous Prime Minister did. Our previous Prime Minister stealthily made himself... Again, he abused the emergency powers provisions and made himself the minister of several things. It's like, but eventually he got caught, and and that's where But anyway, I can't remember what my point was. I can't remember what my actual point was, but you can remind me if you like. But it's I'm just here chatting, so. But I can't remember. But yeah, it is frustrating because you've got people who are just, that's right. So a lot of this stuff is boring. Fact is, it's boring. And this is the grand experiment that I have been trying to do over the years has been there's a lot of parallels between what let's say a science communicator does and what I am trying to do. Science communication is an art form, which is trying to get people interested in, hard sciences or policy or tech. People shut down. It's boring. It's detailed. And unfortunately, but the thing about politics and tech that is different to something like science is that people vote and people use tech. And so they think that they know more than they do. So, your average marketer or even digital agency, most of the people who own digital agencies are fucking stupid. Okay, most of them, they studied marketing, and some of them didn't even go to uni to study market. They're just dumb. They're not bright. They're tactical. They're focused on how to get likes and leads on Twitter. They're not an SEO. They're not. I know the industry. It's full of dummies. Okay, so it's not that they're necessarily evil. They're fucking incompetent and stupid and haven't even thought about it. Like that ethical thing that we talked about before, about how they go, well, I'm serving my client, I'm making money, I'm getting them leads, I'm delivering on my contract. And a big problem with the digital services industry is this, the relationship between clients and agencies is one of mistrust, one of like clients don't understand what they're getting for their money. Part of that is because of agencies that rip people off, but also part of it because clients' expectations are too high for what they get. They don't understand like the man hours that go into creating like these types of things. And, it's a perfect storm of like lots of different things, which is that, you're kind of account managers, even at a large agency, they're on the back foot because they've got to keep the client happy because clients are always, threatening to sue because they don't understand and they're fucking a lot of digital agency stuff is done on good faith and handshakes, and like most of these things happen because of like client expectation management failing and setting bad them thinking that they're getting the next big $1 billion Facebook app, and they've got $2,500 to spend on a fucking form. Like the expectations are way out of whack with what they can actually get for their money, right? And so, like people who think that you can build an iPhone app for $500, and it's like, but you do have people in the industry who make those promises and then fuck it up for the rest of the industry. It's like, and that's just for tech. And then you've got politics, of course, where, those things have somewhat fused, where marketing and politics became fused with this Frankenstein's monster of data and unethical nudging, and people on the political marketing side are going, oh well, as long as we win the election, as long as we get that vote, as long as it's the same mindset, as long as we get the sale, as long as we get the vote, anything that we do is fine. Okay, we can spend as much money as we like, and there's not the ends justify the means because we're righteous. We're doing the right thing. At least with a brand or a business, like a commercial setting or whatever, people are not ethically or morally attached to the product, right? I know I've worked at many. Again, I don't disclose that, but I've worked with like big like FMCGs and some like shady, dodgy like companies like Unilever and Monsanto, and they're affiliated with those things. Like when you work with digital agencies, those big brands, they're the bread and butter, right? And or big tech. I've worked on big tech. And I've had all those sorts of relationships, right, in an account director capacity, and as an agency owner, they're not, oh yay, team M&Ms. They work at M&Ms. Like they're not sitting there in love. They don't believe in the cause of fucking selling shoes. Okay, the problem with political marketing is that they also believe in the cause, which really gets you into some ends justifying the means territory, which is a lot of what we're seeing. And that's why, I'm more forgiving for a commercial marketing funnel than I would be for a political one, because at least there's an element of, oh, well, I mean, yes, obviously, Juul and big tobacco and pharma and those sorts of practices, those obviously require scrutiny too. I mean, that funnel is obvious, but that applied to political marketing, you get a strong, at least in a commercial setting, most people will go, that's icky. Okay, it's not right. It's the line is, if you watch the Juul Big Vape on Netflix, there's a Netflix documentary, Big Vape, about the Juul thing. Even the people who got rich, even the people who were, it's really, I empathize with Juul and what they were trying to do, because they felt yucky about it. They felt yucky, but they felt righteous, and then they sort of rationalized that away. Because they went, well, ultimately we're replacing tobacco. So you make those little compromises along the way. Those compromises are a lot easier to explain away when you are talking about something like fighting Donald Trump. And you find yourself doing the exact same and worse shit in order to fight. You've become the monster that you were trying to fight, right? And it's easy to justify that stuff, right? And righteous cruelty and, justifying violence and justifying, explaining away because the ends justifies the means, right? And that's how a lot of that stuff is. Again, like I said, I believe most people are good. I just think that people's the system, the way the system is set up and designed, is that even good people, okay, even the most ethical people on the planet, okay, we can rationalize things as long as it hits all our biases and our right spots. And, you know, like the people from, you know, Hillary Clinton, I'm sure she thinks is a good person. She's a good person because she's rationalized it somehow. Okay, these digital agencies, they go, well, we're fighting fascism, we're fighting Trump. You know, all these like violent trans activists, they rationalize it because they think that they're defeating fascists and fighting the TERFs who are fascists and alt-right and fucking, you know, the TERFs are fucking angry, like rationalizing the bullying and harassment of trans people because they think that, you know, like because they believe that they are righteous. Righteousness is a hell of a drug. And, you know, when you apply that to unethical practices, especially grey hat, and you got white hat, which is ethical, black hat, which is completely unethical, and grey hat, which is the grey. You know, black hat is like, you know, fishing, illegal, you know, straightforward black hat shit, okay? But you got grey, which is ethical grey areas. Those are much more easily explained away, and you probably find it easier to explain it away the higher the stakes, okay? So that's our own psychology used as a weapon. And so, I try to believe that everyone is trying to do the right thing. And I think that's my frustration, is that maybe I just have a faulty premise here, which is that people are good and they just need persuading, and they just need to see what they're doing, and they need to see that their actions are... Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that entire premise is the problem, which is that people are actually malicious, you know, rather than ignorant. You know, like I think that's been my frustration. I think is that I've been desperately trying to hold on to this idea that people are good but ignorant. And if you only just keep trying to teach them and try to teach them and not give up on them, that, you know, they'll come around. But the worse that it gets, the more obvious that it gets, the harder it is to deny that people are either very scared. Again, we're talking about material conditions here. So a lot of it is fear of losing your job. A lot of it is fear of, you know, your rent going up, fear of being evicted, fear of not being able to feed your kids, fear of being, you know, isolated, and, you know, like all those sorts of things. That's like you're creating the conditions that, like, say you've got a choice, but you don't actually have a choice. Like, you know, this whole system is inherently coercive and repressive, right? I get that because I'm an anomaly in the fact that I just got a big mouth and I underestimated this thing. If I had known and I would have made different calculations. I'm just stuck, so I can't get out of the fucking thing. So it's like there's nothing to lose. And hopefully if I just sit here and talk, there might be people that go, oh, okay, someone is talking sense. You know, that's sort of, you know, that's really where I'm at. Because I've sort of given up. But at the same time, the more obvious that this becomes, right? Again, but people will surprise me as well, right? I know that sounds silly, but every so often, someone I've just assumed, because I went through this thing where I also self-selected away from some people because I just assumed that they wouldn't want to associate with me, or I assumed that they were upset with me and they didn't want to be my friend. I didn't want to find out. And so I was too afraid to find out. So I just left it. I just wanted to leave it be and let it, you know, whatever. But then over time, people have come and gone. They haven't. There's been no real conversation. There's been no real exchange. There's no real anything. But I've just sort of seen them and they go, fuck this shit, and they finally reach a point where they say something and they snap. Like, I've seen that, and they've kind of gone, oh, okay, well, you were paying attention then. Okay, so it's partially that, where people just have to reach their own breaking point. But it's so I haven't been entirely, you know, I think a lot of it has been that I've just assumed that, you get what I mean? Like, I try to just, you know, I don't go out of I just assume. I tend to assume the worst sometimes. I assume that people don't like me. That's my baseline position. So it's like, but yeah, it's what was I going to say? I can't. Oh, fuck, I'm too tired. I've got to go. I think it's time to go. But let me see. I think that's all good. I think we're good. Anyway, I think that's. Yeah, I think I'm fading. I appreciate the fact that you are learning something though. It is good. Can I just say, I know as much as I've been moaning and as much as I express frustration, and stuff. Hang on, just let me get the chats back. As much as I express frustration, I very much appreciate that core core crew of people who have sort of, everyone gets their diehards. I get annoyed that I can't fully appreciate it because I'm having to I don't like, I want to be able to be in a position where I'm more grateful. Does that make sense? Because it's always like, oh, I need more support. I need a bigger audience. I need, I don't like to look at the numbers, and the numbers have never affected me ever. Like it's one of the first things when I've been consulting, which is ignore the numbers, do your thing. But there comes a point where the numbers don't lie, and that there needs to be some motivation to keep going, because we live in the world where things cost money and time, and you're never sure if it's worth it. But the thing that makes me worth it is when people say that they've learned from me. The thing that makes it worth it is when I have a conversation with somebody who's maybe needing my help, or talking people off a ledge, or because it's it can be lonely business when you are seeing things ahead of everyone else. And especially when you find that you are then cut out of that later on because, you weren't, because I'm not a journalist, and I'd be insulted if anyone called me one. I'm just somebody who has subject matter expertise. I'm not media trained. I actually, quite the opposite. I have an aversion to that kind of thing, and I actually have to work at it all the time to be able to even just show up in front of a camera. Like, it's not something that I like doing. I'd love to do comedy or stand-up comedy and stuff, but I just can't seem to overcome I'm not someone who's crawling for the stage. I live in my head. So I understand that it's like I'm not someone who, I have this very weird relationship with influence and stuff, especially having gone viral and various other things. I find it very uncomfortable. But some things are also necessary. Like, if you're going to be putting content out, you need to be able to have a certain fucking level of traction. And so, you know what I mean? Because no one's going to actually hire me to do this work. That was the thing. I was like, I thought that it would just be, oh, well, eventually someone will fund me to set up my own not-for-profit, but an actual not-for-profit, to focus on some of these policy solutions. And it's just not happening. I'm going to be publishing the paper because it's come out of the assignment that I'm doing for uni, believe it or not. But I need to modify it. And so I'm not giving the uni my best work because they own the copyright. So what I'm going to do is use that paper to leverage another research paper that I'm probably going to try and get published independent of the institution, because I'm just going to do my own thing. That might give me some stuff. But it's really slow going. It's really hard. You can't justify spending days writing these things when, you're not paid for it. It's just, and then you feel that need to show up and stream and do it regularly. And I also know that if you stream every day and regularly, you're more likely to get that traction. But then you've got to be prepared, because I have a policy of being, somewhat prepared, because otherwise you end up with a dog shit show that was the first half hour, 45 minutes of this stream. Some would argue the whole thing. It takes a lot of reading and preparation and research, and then I've got to not be ADHD to begin with. And it's like, well, you know, it's, again, people aren't necessarily, people, you know, I'm not, what am I going to do? Sit and yell about pronouns in Starfield and get mad? Like, that seems to be where people are at. Or, you know, yelling about a problem and talking about a problem and having lots and lots of discussions about nothing. The IDW is basically Seinfeld without the jokes. It's like, it's just conversations about nothing constantly. It's like, yeah, we know this. Anyone who reads or is well read about anything in the social sciences there's words for these things. And my dalliance with them, I kind of went in thinking they didn't know, because I'm used to people not knowing about tech and politics and stuff. I'm used to people just not knowing stuff and having to explain it. But then as I kept explaining it, and they slowly just kept inching me out as I raised some of these things with astroturfing, I realized they do fucking know. They just don't want people talking about it in a way. You know, yeah, anyway. You know what I mean? So anyway, I think it's time for me to go. I've got some stuff to do. I have to go grocery shopping as well. You know, I do have life responsibilities as well. And, but yeah, so I'll be back later some other time. I'm annoyed that handoff stopped working because I've still got to reconfigure this thing, and my nose is itchy as fuck. So I've got a bottle brush outside my house, and for Americans, that's a native tree, and it makes my nose itch to fuck. So anyway, I'm gonna go. Thanks for watching. Have a great night. I thought you were going to bed, Stephen. And I will see you another time. But thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it, and I will talk soon. Again, it's not that I'm not. I'm always thinking about how I should have streamed and what I want to stream on, and then I just kind of don't know what to say, you know. It's the world. I'm just trying to think about what I'm doing, and I think we all feel that way. But when I show up, I feel bad about being negative in this stream, because I try not to be too negative. I do a bit of funny ranting and stuff, but I don't want you to go away feeling bad about things, or, you know, I just wanted you to know that I'm feeling that way, and that you're not alone in feeling that way, and like that there are answers, but they're tricky. You know, it's not straightforward, and, you know, anyway, you know, we soldier on. It's all temporary, and we'll, you know, the problem with live streaming is that you get whatever Taya is in front of the camera at that moment. And it's fun, because you don't know what you're going to get. I don't know what I'm going to get. I don't know what I'm going to say. But I say it. We'll see what happens. Sometimes it comes out the way I want. Sometimes it doesn't. It's just part of the course. Yeah. Well, thanks, Isaac. I appreciate you saying that. I do. Yeah, I have a packaging problem. And like I said, that is my frustration, which is that a lot of it is just I don't engage in the actual behaviours that I believe are the problem, which is drama farming and, you know, chicken hawking and, you know, you think I couldn't pick a fight with fucking Anna Kasparian and get her to bite? Or, I mean, you know, not that I would, but, you know, I'll pick a fight with someone and just, like, do you think I couldn't do that? Right? You think that, like, I couldn't start shit with, like, Nick Rakita and fucking, like, you know, or whatever. It's like, but it doesn't. Or you think I couldn't, like, tweet outrage and then buy 3,000 likes on that tweet, and then everyone think it goes viral, and it's not. It's just astroturfed and shit. And you think I couldn't just say the whatevers and get it? I went there. I've done it. Like, I that was the experiment that I did, like, which was I started A/B testing this shit. And, like, every time I would do some sort of trans or non-binary joke, it would go, you know, they love bomb the shit out of you. Over time, they realized that I was A/B testing, so the fucking troll farms leave me alone now. But, like, now, at the time, when they thought I was new, So I think the benefit was that I'd taken, because I'd gotten sick of Twitter in 2015. It was just fucking Trump Central. It was bullshit. And I fucking got sick of it because I was busy and I'd lost interest in Twitter. Like, I always missed Twitter back in 2010 or 2011. But like, I was like, there was a website called clout.com, and they would like have a like most influential ladder. And I was the top of that ladder for Perth, like, which, I mean, that's like, you know, that's not really that much, but you know, I was the top in my city, like, for like most of the time around that time. And but you know, but I lost interest, and so I think that they thought that I was actually more naive than I was, which was that I'd taken a break, so no one had any real reference point for who I was or whatever. So when I just sort of reactivated to sort of talk about speech and go, okay, I think Megan Murphy was banned unfairly and all that sort of stuff, I think that they misread me and thought that I was nudgeable when I wasn't, right? Which it's been a fun experiment, because I have had some pretty weapons grade interactions, like with especially the AI, like the bots and stuff that have showed up. It's been very strange. I seem to get the good shit. I don't seem to get the bad troll farms, or I get the expensive stuff. But they have tried to nudge me and influence me over the years, right? The far right, they come knocking all the time, and I tell them to fuck off. You know, the number of times I've gotten emails from like people, and you know, like if I'm guarded with you, Isaac, or anyone who is new that shows up, it's because there's people that show up and will make all sorts of things and have conversations, and then they end up like flipping on me like that, right? Because they're trying to get me to become a mouthpiece for them, and so that's why, you know, I think you can only really understand what it's like. And also, this is how you know that people like that, like, because if they're talking to me and contacting me, it means that these info op people, whatever, propagandists and fucking organisers and PR people, they're definitely contacting other influencers, right? So when with the story that I was contacted to share, I watched that go like radiate throughout the Murdoch press and the media. That was a planted story, and I watched it, and I lost trust for a bunch of people who I saw just repeating that shit, because I know they'd had the same phone call that I'd had, and so obviously, and also because like that particular person tends to be particularly nasty and particularly manipulative. I just, you know, I wish him well. To quote Tim Dillon, I wish him well. But yeah, it's just, you know, yeah. But we can talk about it. Like, you just got to build trust, because that's the thing, which is that I have managed to build a little bubble of people who are like right-minded and sort of critical, and, you know, yeah, understand what I'm about, which is really cool. But you've got to assume that these phone calls, that people are being approached. And that's why when I said I know what it takes to get there, it means to just say the line, say the thing that panders to the Daily Wire's talking points. You don't think that I haven't had those phone calls and those opportunities over the years where they've just approached me and sort of love bombed me and offered me these things and said that. And the second that I've said, no, that's not, like, I'm sorry, then they've, you know, switched and started mass reporting. Like, I know that this stuff goes on. So that's why when you've got these content creators, you know, left and right and in between, you have to assume that they've been approached. You have to assume that they're being offered things, the same things, book deals, whatever, that I've been offered. And I think you can see those who have written books despite having no qualifications in politics, those who are on Joe Rogan despite having nothing to say, those who are sudden on the anti-woke train, who suddenly are getting all of this fucking attention and expertise and Oxford Union speeches. You kind of understand that they're on the take, because you've had the same phone calls. You've had the same conversations. You've seen the fact that you can just go, oh yeah, and say, oh yeah, hashtag walk away, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. And then you are now a content creator / branded content influencer for political operations. It's if you got to have nerves. For some reason, I just can't do it. I don't know why. I've often thought, I was like, fuck, you can't make money without doing it. because the problem is that if you won't comply, they also report you. I don't know whether that's the case anymore, but I think I have been so fucked with that, like, the platforms themselves, without being able to go in and manually correct the degree to which my data is fucked, I think that it's just like, I think they don't, I've just got every flag in the system known to man because of various, you know, like the way that it all operates, because it's all held together with tape and glue as well. It's not necessarily the fault of the tech companies. It's just, you know, they have to have these systems in place, you know, to protect from these, from you trust me, you don't want a censorship free fucking social media. You don't want that. Okay. As in free speech, pure, like nothing, unmoderated was the word that I was talking about, was thinking of. You don't want that. No user wants that. You're not going to have any commercial, any kind of usable experience with an unmoderated social media platform at scale. It's just not going to happen. But also they're having to push back. You'll see that with the CCDH, and that you got you know, so-called like ethical people using social engineering to manipulate these platforms as well. Then you've got malicious actors. Then you've got fucking scammers, and you've got people who are just, you've got script kiddies as well, who can just write a script and mass report someone because you told them to go to bed. As I like doing that to fucking, like, people I think are like 50, like children. I just say, go to bed. Go to bed, Stephen. Anyway. Yeah. So, you know, you've got to keep your guard up, but not to the point where you know, that's the problem with these chat management and the sort of, some of this is in the course that I've done over the years. This is stuff that I could teach other people, but you've got to have your guard up. But also, like, it can be perceived as ungrateful or rude, or, you know, that you're kind of ignoring people when you're not. You're just waiting for them to sort of meet. They've got to sort of build. You've got to know that you can trust who people are, because, you know, people will approach anyone who shows up and try to get them to, you know, pivot, right? If you have a content creator that you like, that you see suddenly pivot, you know, the question should be there. Now, it's been interesting watching what's happening with TYT, the Young Turks, and Anna Kasparian in particular, because I think that that's actually, for her, I think, a matter of conscience. I think that she's actually, you know, I think she's on balance a good actor, right? And there's a few people, but you know, there's others where you go, you know, anyway, I've made no secret of the people that I think are on the take or very stupid. But you know, the nature of again, what's the solution to that? You can't talk about politics online without a license. What's the, you know, like, let's think about the next thing. What's the solution? What's the product solution to this? Like, I've got a few like papers on stuff that I've been writing over the years. But again, I don't want to put this stuff out because I never get paid for it, and people steal it and take the credit. So I was like, I sit there and I sit on most of my stuff. But from a product point of view, how do you fix it? How do you balance the shit that you're seeing with the violent imagery of Gaza, what's going on in Gaza right now, with I don't want to see that shit. How do you balance that from a product point of view without having any false positives? Okay, because the technology is not there. It's not as sophisticated as you'd think, right? There's going to, every time you have a machine that detects things, okay, you're going to have a false positive. Now, what level of false positive? Now, the answer to that is, well, if you're a false positive, you should have an appeals process and be able to have it remedied quickly, okay? And that's where tech companies fall down. I can't contact anyone at Facebook or X or whatever if they've fucked up. Like, there's no one. I can't talk to anyone. And if they do, then they realize that you know, it's you get what I'm saying? So there's a process problem, there's a product problem, there's a tech problem, but then you've also got the people problem. Like, the biggest problem in cybersecurity is the people. So, you know, the best product, the best system, the best process, you know, the best technology is going to be exploited by you know, cybersecurity is probably the biggest angle here. There's like all these attack vectors. You could have a secure passwords policy. You could have the best, most airtight product. You could have the best technology in the world, and people will go, oh, well, like the political bias that I'm talking about. You'll justify doing bad shit because you've been told that, you know, this is an existential threat and you've got to do it. And, you know, you're on the wrong side of history with this, and you make a calculated decision to go, okay, well, I'll just put that person on that list because, you know, I don't want to, like, first of all, I don't want to make an enemy of these people because I'm a little bit afraid of them and I'm in too deep. Like, those like troll, those engagement pods, what they do is they target low-level influencers and say, we're going to boost you, and you move progressively up to the point where once you build influence, like you've got 100K followers or whatever, they can destroy you with that same thing. So, you know, like people are in deep. So it actually takes quite a lot of bravery to break ranks once you're into these like little networks and these things. So, you know, props to Anna Kasparian for that one. But it's just, you get what I'm saying? So it's like these are not easy problems to solve. And I don't think it's, you know, the only answer that I've come up with, because I initially thought that it was therapeutic, but I don't think it's therapeutic, was to do, get the JD and do product. But even then, the product work at the moment, I'm going to have to make the decisions that I don't want to have to make. I can't go back to tech doing product until they make a commitment to not be doing evil shit. And it seems like there's no real impetus or desire. There's no will for them to not do evil shit, you know? And until that changes, like, I'll help solve the problem, but you need to be able to rally around. They need to say, well, we can't, this is not say we need to get away from being sued for our social score, but they need to say our social score is wrong. We should destroy this. You know, like it's completely different sides of the coin. And unfortunately, to go do product work, you have to choose the former, which is to rationalize it. And it's a tricky problem. But anyway, I'm going to go. I have to drink something, and I will be back later. I love you. Thank you for your precious life seconds. I'm sorry this was a bit rambly and meandering, but I haven't done it for a while. Every so often I'll do a catch-up, wandering, nothing stream and talk shit. But I appreciate you for sticking around. Isaac, I'll check my email. It's yeah, I've been a bit busy, but if I take a while to get back to you, it's nothing personal. I just, you know, sometimes I just, yeah, I've got stuff, and, you know, I've got other stuff, private stuff, personal stuff going on as well. So it's like, yeah. So anyway, I love you. Take care. And I will see you soon. Maybe, if I feel like it. If I can be asked. Love you. Bye. Is it going to hang up? No. It's not going to. Okay.